Hi, this is Kelsey Blaho, and this is the class EDL 850, Module 1. So just a little bit about me. So I teach high schoolers life skills, so it's also known as family and consumer sciences. I just like to say life skills, because I think that's basically what I do on the day-to-day. Yeah, so I've been teaching for about 3 years, just finished up. Basically, all my teaching career has been in the pandemic, which is crazy. And then I also teach at the high school I went to. Here's a picture of my coworkers down here. They're amazing. And this coworker was actually my teacher in high school, so kind of fun to be full circle. I'm also a dog mom to Juniper. Here's a picture of us on the kayak with her. She's a rescue, so love her. And then that's my husband. We've been married for about 2 years, again, all during pandemic time. I also competed in college track. There's a picture of me throwing. That's where I met my husband. So did that at CSU for 5 years. And there I studied family and consumer sciences, got my teaching license, and then also double majored in human development and family studies too. I love being outdoors. I'm also an advisor for a club called FCCLA, which is Family Career Community Leaders of America, within our department. And then I coach track on the side, pretty part-time. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And then I just wanted to put this slide in here to kind of transition a little bit. So government control of public education. And then I just put a little quote in there that I felt like was relevant to this topic. So we're going to dive in now. So a little bit federal government. So defining that there was a ratification of the 10th Amendment, which gives states jurisdiction over all powers not reserved for the federal government. The U.S. Constitution, so including education. And then there was kind of a fight for equality of education for all students, regardless of race, income, gender, ethnicity, language, and immigration status. So I feel like this just kind of defines the federal government and kind of the power it has to make some changes. Again, the federal government has a responsibility to ensure the right to a free and high quality education for all K through 12 students by protecting their civil rights and providing resources for the most in need, using data, providing support, all that kind of stuff. And then I just put a little blurb on Brown v. Board of Education because that was mentioned in one of the other articles. Again, laws establishing racial segregation in schools is unconstitutional. So focusing again on that equality component. Oops. And then again, just a little bit more on federal government, so describing what their duties are, and then some examples. So I just picked a few. Decisions on what is taught, mostly around kind of curriculum and scores is kind of the direction I was going. And then I just put a couple quotes from some articles I felt like supported that. So disrupting education delivery, it not only impacts every student, but basically every person. So it has a big impact. And then noting that much of what has been written on education policy involves where the federal government should stay out of education governance. So I thought that was just kind of interesting, talking about components of where the government shouldn't be involved more so than where it should. And then the federal government helps a little bit with funding, so budgets. So they pass a federal budget each year. It sets aside money to fund about 10% of government-run schools' operating costs, which I was kind of shocked that it was so low. I was expecting a little bit more. Then I also put testing down. So testing is one of them. Congress passed the No Child Left Behind Act, which requires schools to test students annually on core subjects. That's where a lot of that state testing, national testing kind of comes from. But the government can't force people to comply to the No Child Left Behind Act, but pretty much all states cooperate because that's the only way they get funding. So yeah, not everyone wants to do the testing, but we all need the funding. So kind of forced into that a little bit. And then number 4, equal opportunity for education. So that was kind of talked about in that first section. Again, making sure that everyone gets the proper education they need. And then just overall education development, how it's kind of grown and changed over the years. So not only research development, gathering information, trying to figure out the best quality for the nation's education system, because I'm sure it's evolved over the last even 25, 50 years. And then looking at just again kind of that support for development, continuous improvement, state and local, that kind of thing. And then again, just kind of the limits of federal in education, so kind of just acknowledging that as well. And then I took this as kind of just like my personal experiences or personal kind of thoughts on the different branches of government. So just kind of some things that maybe have affected my life or the people around me. So COVID was a big thing and how that was all handled and shutting down schools. I feel like that definitely impacted me. Overall teacher salaries, I feel like they're very low across the country, not just in Colorado. Lack of funding with COVID. I know there was a big bill that was passed to get funding for like that first year, and then it's kind of diminished since then. And then also, again, same with the testing. It went away for a little bit and then kind of being forced to do that again. And then I think just kind of overall, just the government in general, having politics ruling happening in the country that affects my students and kind of their lives, kind of outside of school too. And then I feel like that kind of leaks into school, so trying to manage that. So those are just kind of some personal things that I feel like have come up or that I've noticed. So we'll move on to the state government. So defining that. Sorry, it's cut off a little bit. State governments exercise primary accountability and oversight for government-run schools. And then here's just kind of some big examples. We have educational standards. So looking at things like social studies, art, foreign languages, that kind of thing. So they might do additional ones compared to the core ones. Each state creates, implements, and enforces standards differently. But again, there's kind of this framework for them. And then funding was the next one. So funding state lotteries replace taxpayer money rather than supplementing it. So lotteries are part of it, taxpayer money. Again, this all helps kind of educations. This is by state. Also, performance evaluation. So I know some schools, again, kind of have that Common Core standard, the State Department looking at those benchmarks for student achievement, especially in reading, math, science, those kind of things. And then I know for our state, they deal with educator licensure. So for renewing license for current staff, getting new license for staff. So we have to do all of that through the state. Career and college readiness was another thing that I found. Specific to Colorado within our CDE. All students graduate ready for college and careers and prepared to be productive citizens of Colorado. That was their kind of their vision statement. And then they also have an equity plan, which I thought was really cool. Committed to learning more, taking action, advocating for change, more inclusive organization. So those are kind of the ones I picked. And then again, personal experiences with state. So an adequate teacher pay, I know that's kind of been a big push lately, especially within our union. It should just get better pay just across the state. Police and mental health support, SRO in our school system, marijuana taxes, funding from the state. So that's been kind of newer. Perkins funding, COVID relief and funding. So those are just kind of some of the big things that I've seen. So local government. State departments kind of create school districts, and then from there they kind of create like local school board type things. And then Fort Collins has our own government as well, so kind of depending on the city or state you're in, it could look a little bit different. So we have local politics, so there could be local things happening in the town, so that can kind of reflect on the school. And then operation of schools in the district. So again, like I mentioned, it kind of trickles down to be for each district. And so the city kind of helps manage that with the mayor and that kind of thing. So school board and superintendent. So the local government will kind of help select school board, make sure that's running smoothly, making sure that, again, busing, transportation, that kind of thing is all funded as well. So, and this just kind of breaks down, each school is governed by a school board, there's a superintendent, sometimes the mayor's involved, sometimes not. Funding, so again, looking at property taxes, local tax, that kind of thing. And then there might be district curriculum, and that could vary from school to school, district to district. I know with our school we have this thing called the Futures Lab. I know that's where the city is mostly focusing on a lot of the funding, especially with college readiness type stuff. So some other things, funding for schools through marijuana tax, police and mental health like I talked about, Wi-Fi within the city. They've tried to get more access that way, and they've installed a citywide kind of Wi-Fi thing. Public transportation increase with city bus, scooters, that kind of thing. And then I also found they're looking at input on minimum wage. So that's just kind of some local government stuff I've seen. School board, so promoting current and future success and well-being of each student. So school board handles the nitty-gritty things like budget, curriculum, that kind of stuff. Safety, mass requirements, that kind of thing. Manage the school district. Yeah, they also appoint the superintendent. This was big for us because they just hired a new one this year. I also had to send in my tenure application to them, and they had to review that. So they kind of also manage that. Communicate with the public, so through social media, there's school board meetings weekly, that kind of thing. Evaluate technology. So again, we talked about live streaming their school board meetings, one-to-one technology within the school. That was a big push even when I was in high school. Implement laws, policies, regulations. Again, each school is a little bit different, but the district and school board kind of creates the laws for everybody to follow. So here's just kind of some other things that they do for the operating system. School policies, school budget, district superintendent, district curriculum, collaborative bargaining agreements. I know our school is going through a big bargaining agreement with teacher pay, leave time, that kind of thing. And then policies for hiring. And so data informed, there's so much data that we look at staff meetings from across the school, so we get to look at how other schools are doing compared to our school. So there's a lot of data there. And then here's my standard correlation, my relevancy, and then reflection. So I feel like this assignment helped me to be a better educator and future leader because I now know where and how to fight for things for my students. So if I know that it's a government level thing, like federal government or state or just our school board, I know kind of where to go and who to talk to, kind of what effort it's going to take to get that thing passed. And then this will influence my decision as a school leader, especially making sure my students get more funding, just better pay for staff, and just overall equality in education, I think is really important. So just knowing, again, where to fight, how to fight, to get the best for my students. And then there's my references.